So I want you to picture a scene that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a dystopian thriller. And this is playing out right now in late May 2026.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal.
It really is. So you are standing on Dreamus Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. And this isn't, some quaint residential street. It is a heavily, heavily industrial corridor.
Right.
The care is just thick. It smells aggressively of, like, sewage treatment, diesel exhaust, and chemical manufacturing.
Just a really brutal environment.
Exactly. And the late spring heat is baking the pavement. And right in front of you sits this sprawling 1,000-bed private detention center. It's called Delaney Hall.
Delaney Hall, yeah.
Now, inside those walls, hundreds of detainees are refusing to eat. They've launched this desperate hunger strike.
Which is an intense situation on its own.
Right. But then outside the gates, the scene has deteriorated into, honestly, total physical warfare. I mean, protesters are dragging heavy wooden pallets and mattresses into the road.
To build barricades, yeah.
Yeah. And federal agents, clad in full riot gear, are firing pepper ball projectiles and deploying tasers directly into the crowd.
It's chaotic.
Complete chaos. Makeshift barricades are being smashed. And choking on pepper spray right in the middle of this crossfire is a sitting United States senator.
And, the visual of a federal lawmaker being gassed by federal agents on a state road, I mean, that is the physical manifestation of this massive systemic collision between state sovereignty and federal supremacy.
And that collision is our mission for you today. We are going to untangle the intensely conflicting, deeply polarized narratives surrounding this ongoing standoff at Delaney Hall.
So there's a lot to unpack.
So much. We are going to piece together the operational timeline of how, a labor dispute inside a cafeteria escalated into a physical battleground that's shutting down commercial transit. Wow. And we will dissect the landmark federal court ruling that legally guaranteed this exact street clash would happen. But before we jump into the timeline, a quick reminder, please take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell so you never miss one of these deep dives.
Always appreciate that.
And as required, here's a brief update on the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter. It is not a lawsuit yet. We are in a voluntary quiet period requested by Stevens. There is hope for a settlement, but no progress or discussions are currently known. And the dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Stevens is physically and legally safe.
Okay, so moving to the sources on the Newark situation, we really need to establish some operational ground rules for this deep dive.
Yeah, that's crucial here.
Because the materials we're synthesizing today, they contain highly polarized, highly politically charged rhetoric.
Very much so.
Right. I mean, we are examining statements from the Trump administration, claims from Democratic lawmakers, and tactical reports from various activist organizations.
It's a wide spectrum.
Exactly. And because of the volatile nature of these documents, I want to make it super clear that neither of us is taking a side or endorsing any of the viewpoints discussed.
Definitely not.
Our sole job here is to impartially report, deconstruct, and just analyze the claims contained in the provided source material. So you, the listener, can understand the actual mechanics of what is happening.
Right. So let's start by looking at the catalyst inside the facility. Because, the explosions on the street, they didn't just happen in a vacuum.
No, they didn't.
They were triggered by a complete breakdown of the internal logistics at Delaney Hall. So on Friday, May 22nd, 2026, the detainee population initiated a coordinated labor and hunger strike.
And the sheer scale of that coordination is really notable.
Oh, absolutely.
According to advocacy groups and letters that were actually smuggled out by the detainees, we're looking at between 200 and 400 individuals housed at Delaney Hall participating. Yeah. And just for context, this facility is operated by the private contractor GEO Group under a contract with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. And these detainees, they just stopped working and stopped eating.
Okay, I want to stop on the labor strike detail, because my initial reaction when reading the sources was just total confusion.
About the work.
Yeah, like, why are detainees running the internal operations of a federal holding facility in the first place? The sources indicate they're performing, the cooking, the laundry, the janitorial work, and facility maintenance.
Right.
And they're doing all of this for $1 a day. I mean, how does GEO Group legally operate a massive commercial facility utilizing labor paid at a fraction of the state minimum wage?
Well, it operates under this mechanism called the Voluntary Work Program.
Okay.
And that's outlined in ICE's performance-based national detention standards.
Yeah.
Basically, courts have historically ruled that individuals in civil immigration detention are not classified as employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Wait, really? They don't count as employees.
No, they don't. The legal rationale is that their relationship with the facility is custodial rather than economic.
I see.
Because the private contractor is providing housing and food, the labor is legally categorized as a voluntary program to maintain common living areas rather than actual commercial employment.
Wow. But that classification creates this undeniable, just massive structural incentive.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, a for-profit contractor's margins inherently increase the fewer outside minimum wage civilian staff they actually have to hire to run those kitchens and clean the cell blocks.
Exactly.
So when 400 detainees suddenly refuse to perform those tasks, the daily logistical machinery of a 1,000-bed facility just grinds to an immediate halt. They're literally paralyzing the supply chain from the inside.
And they're amplifying that logistical paralysis by refusing meals.
Right.
The stated reasons for this strike, according to the letters published by advocates and testimony from recently released individuals, they really center on severe infrastructural and medical deprivation.
The details there are rough.
They are. The complaints describe these tiny food portions that are infested with maggots, a complete lack of air conditioning, and stagnant ventilation systems.
Yeah.
And remember, the region is heading right into the peak summer months.
Which makes the heat issue dangerous. But the medical claims detailed in the sources, that is where the situation shifts from, logistical complaints to allegations of acute physical danger.
Right. It gets much more serious.
The documents outline this untreated flu virus just spreading rapidly through the confined population. But it escalates way beyond respiratory viruses. We have specific documented claims brought forward by U.S. representatives.
Jerry Nadler, Dan Goldman, and Adriano Espaillat.
Exactly. And they attempted to conduct oversight inspections of the facility.
And the lawmakers reported just harrowing instances of systemic medical neglect.
Yeah.
The most prominent allegation involves a pregnant detainee who reportedly suffered a miscarriage inside Delaney Hall without any specialized OBGYN intervention.
I mean, that's just horrific. And there's more. Another detainee allegedly discovered a lump in her breast and has spent over a month waiting just to receive a preliminary mammogram.
Just waiting.
Just waiting. Another individual is reportedly suffering from colon cancer and receiving zero oncological treatment. And according to Representative Nadler's public statements, the facility's default medical response to these severe, life-threatening ailments is just the distribution of over-the-counter Tylenol.
Tylenol for cancer.
Right.
But we have to juxtapose that terrifying narrative with the official administrative response, because the Department of Homeland Security, under Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen and the GEO Group, they aren't just debating the nuances of their medical care.
No, they're not.
They are issuing blanket categorical denials that any crisis even exists.
It's wild. Secretary Mullen actually took to social media to state, quote, "There is no hunger strike at Delaney Hall. There are no subprime conditions."
A total denial.
Yeah. He characterized the entire situation as basically a preference dispute, suggesting the detainees simply want cuisine from their native countries.
Right.
His exact phrasing was, "This isn't a Holiday Inn. We're giving them the calories they want."
And GEO Group's institutional defense mirrors DHS's stance almost perfectly. Their official corporate statement points to a 40-year track record of supporting federal law enforcement.
Okay.
They assert the facility provides 24-hour access to medical professionals, dietitian-approved meals, and comprehensive recreational amenities. And they claim all of this is subject to continuous daily monitoring by IC personnel on site.
It is a complete epistemological breakdown. I mean, it's like looking at a single Yelp page for a restaurant where half the reviews describe this sterile, hyper-efficient cafeteria serving dietitian-approved meals.
Yeah.
And the other half describe an active biohazard zone where people are suffering miscarriages on the floor. We are looking at two mutually exclusive realities occupying the exact same physical space. I mean, how does the federal oversight mechanism fail so completely that a cabinet secretary and a block of U.S. congressmen cannot even agree on whether 400 people are currently eating food?
And that irreconcilable gap in the public record is exactly what generated the kinetic energy on Doremus Avenue.
Yep.
Because when a community hears allegations of untreated cancer and miscarriages, and the state responds by claiming the inmates are merely complaining about the menu well, The tension cannot be contained within the legal or bureaucratic systems anymore. It just spills out onto the pavement.
So let's trace that spillover,
Yeah.
because the transition from, a picket line expressing grievances to a physical battleground disrupting interstate commerce, it hinges on a very specific tactical escalation over the weekend.
It does. The primary catalyst occurred on Sunday night.
Okay.
And the focus was a detainee named Martin Soto, whom ICE allegedly identified as one of the internal organizers of the hunger strike.
The alleged ringleader.
Right. Now, Soto's wife, Gabriella, who is pregnant with their third child, she was part of the demonstration outside the gates.
Yeah.
And during the protest, she actually witnessed her husband being forcibly moved by guards into an ICE transfer van.
And based on her account to the press, Soto was banging on the reinforced windows of the van, just screaming as he was loaded into the vehicle.
Yeah.
And Gabriella didn't just, document this on her phone. She weaponized the crowd's numbers.
She did.
She and the surrounding protesters threw their actual physical bodies in front of the primary exit gate. They formed a human chain to block the federal transport vehicle from leaving the property, chanting, "Free Martin" and "Free them all."
And from a law enforcement standpoint, that moment is the real flashpoint. Well, a peaceful assembly on a public sidewalk is constitutionally protected. But the moment individuals use their bodies to physically trap a federal transport vehicle and block an exit route, the classification of the event shifts. It goes from a First Amendment assembly to illegal obstruction and unlawful detainment of federal property.
That makes sense.
Yeah. DHS incident reports state the agitators not only formed a human chain but set up barricades and actually began striking the armored vehicle with unidentified objects.
And the demonstrators rapidly escalated their tactics beyond simply standing in the road. I mean, the sources describe this improvised, highly effective supply chain disruption.
Oh, yeah.
Protesters began dragging heavy industrial detritus. We're talking mattresses, discarded wooden pallets, massive traffic cones, cement construction blocks, and sandbags, just dragging it all right across Doremus Avenue.
A massive barricade.
Exactly. They weren't just blocking IC transfer vans anymore. They were fortifying their lines to halt the massive 18-wheeler trucks that utilize that entire industrial corridor.
And faced with a fortified barricade trapping federal vehicles, the ICE agents initiated a severe escalation of force to clear the perimeter and basically reestablish operational control of the street.
And the tactical response detailed in the sources is incredibly heavy and chaotic. We are reading descriptions of federal agents forming riot lines, deploying aerosolized pepper spray directly into the front lines of the crowd, swinging batons to break the human chains, and firing pepper ball projectiles.
And to understand the physics of that response, a pepper ball is not just a paintball. No, it's a frangible projectile filled with Povier powder, which is a highly irritating chemical agent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when it strikes a surface or a human body, it shatters, delivering kinetic blunt force trauma while simultaneously releasing this cloud of chemical irritant straight into the respiratory system.
That sounds brutal. And the use of tasers also created incredibly dangerous secondary hazards out there. The reports detail one specific, honestly horrifying sequence.
Right, the train tracks.
Yes. A protester broke from the barricade line, being chased by dozens of IC officers. He sprinted across the pavement and onto a set of elevated gravel train tracks.
Just trying to get away.
Right. And as he navigated the uneven stones, an ICE officer deployed a taser, striking the fleeing man squarely in the back.
Which is incredibly dangerous on uneven ground.
Exactly. The electrical current causes immediate neuromuscular incapacitation. The report describes his body going completely rigid before he crashed face first onto the sharp gravel.
Awful.
The agents then physically lifted his stiffened body and carried him behind the walls of the detention facility.
And furthermore, activist organizations present on the ground claim the application of force was not merely about clearing a path. They claim it was about systematic intimidation.
Right.
Pax Christi, New Jersey, they're a Catholic peace organization. They alleged that ICE tactical teams actively identified and targeted the volunteer street medics who were treating the injured.
Yeah, they cited the case of Adam Marshall, who is a U.S. Army veteran acting as a designated medic. According to Pax Christi's documentation, ICE agents bypassed the active barricade builders, flanked Marshall from behind a parked car, physically dragged him inside the Delaney Hall perimeter, and then subsequently dumped him on a completely different street an hour later.
Just dropped him off.
Yeah. And if that's accurate, neutralizing medical support is a deliberate tactic to degrade the protesters' ability to sustain their physical blockade.
Definitely. And the sheer chaos of this street-level tactical environment is exactly what led to the Monday melee involving Senator Andy Kim.
Right, the sitting senator.
Yeah. Senator Kim, a Democrat representing New Jersey, had utilized his congressional authority to enter Delaney Hall for an oversight inspection. And he was accompanied outside by Governor Mikey Sherrill, who was attempting to de-escalate the tension with the families of the detainees.
But when Senator Kim exited the facility, he walked directly into an active skirmish. An armored ICE vehicle was attempting to physically push through the crowd of demonstrators.
Which is incredibly tense.
Very. The senator and his staff deliberately placed themselves in the gap between the heavily armored federal vehicle and the unarmored civilians, basically attempting to leverage his federal office to force a ceasefire.
But the ICE agents did not recognize or defer to his authority.
Not at all.
They continued their push. They deployed pepper spray and fired pepper balls into the immediate area, directly hitting Senator Kim and his congressional staff.
Unbelievable.
Senator Kim later documented the event on social media, describing agents tackling civilians to the pavement and calling the entire federal response shameful.
Now, DHS Secretary Mullen's defense of this aggressive tactical posture relies entirely on a strict law and order framing.
Right.
He explicitly rejected the term protesters, reclassifying the crowd as anti-IC rioters. He justified the use of chemical munitions and kinetic projectiles by stating the crowd included individuals wearing face-concealing keffiyehs, that they were launching unknown chemical substances at the riot lines, and that they were actively committing federal felonies by impeding law enforcement operations.
His official position is that the ICE agents utilized the absolute minimum necessary force to protect themselves and secure the facility against what he called a dangerous coordinated mob.
But analyzing this operational timeline reveals a glaring jurisdictional anomaly.
It does.
I mean, if a riot breaks out on Doremus Avenue, which is a public street in the city of Newark, standard operating procedure dictates that the Newark Police Department or the New Jersey State Police deploy their riot control units.
Right.
Why are federal immigration agents whose primary training involves executing administrative warrants and managing custodial facilities, why are they acting as street-level riot police managing barricades on municipal asphalt?
And that jurisdictional anomaly is the linchpin of the broader political crisis here.
Okay, let's unpack that.
The local police were not breaking up the barricades because the state of New Jersey fundamentally restricted their ability to interact with federal immigration enforcement.
How so?
This is governed by a state policy known as the Immigrant Trust Directive.
Okay, let's explore the mechanics of that directive. How does a state governor legally prevent a local municipal police chief from dispatching officers to clear a burning barricade that's blocking a public road?
Well, the Immigrant Trust Directive was designed by the state attorney general to build cooperation between immigrant communities and local law enforcement.
Right.
It achieves this by strictly prohibiting state, county, and local police officers from utilizing state resources or personnel to assist ICE with civil immigration enforcement, except in incredibly narrow circumstances involving violent criminal warrants. But because Delaney Hall is a civil immigration detention center, Governor Mikey Sherrill's administration interpreted the directive to mean local police could not operate as the defensive vanguard for ICE operations.
They essentially informed local law enforcement. That is, a federal contractor experiencing a federal dispute. Let the federal government police its own perimeter.
Exactly. Yeah. And Secretary Mullen was enraged by this interpretation.
I can imagine.
He went on national television and stated that DHS had repeatedly contacted local and state police requesting crowd control assistance as the barricades went up, and Governor Sherrill explicitly blocked their deployment.
Wow.
As a result, the federal government claimed they had no choice but to deploy their own internal ICE tactical units to the street, forcing them to execute crowd control missions way outside their standard operational scope.
And this intentional severing of local and federal law enforcement communication inevitably pulled the White House into the fray.
Of course.
During a televised cabinet meeting, President Trump weaponized this jurisdictional divide. He praised local New Jersey police officers, stating they're phenomenal and asserting they love him and his administration, but are handcuffed by radical sanctuary policies that threaten their jobs if they enforce the law.
He also attempted to delegitimize the protest entirely, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. He characterized the crowd as fake and paid for, claiming their placards all looked like they were manufactured in the same, quote, beautiful factory.
Now, while the president engaged in that rhetorical delegitimization, DHS Secretary Mullen introduced an unprecedented administrative lever.
The airport threat.
Right. He threatened to completely halt the processing of international flights at Newark Liberty International Airport.
This is where the scale of the retaliation just becomes staggering to me. Newark Liberty is a vital node in global transit.
Huge.
How? How does a cabinet secretary justify shutting down international travel for an entire economic region over a localized zoning and protest dispute outside a single detention center?
The leverage relies on the organizational architecture of the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay, explain that.
DHS is the umbrella agency overseeing both ICE, the agents currently fighting on Dreamus Avenue, and Customs and Border Protection, or CBP.
Right, the agents at the airports.
Exactly, the ones operating the passport control boats at international airports. Mullen argued that if the local government refuses to provide police backup for ICE, the DHS will be forced to dynamically reallocate its own internal resources to secure its facilities.
So his operational logic is essentially, if the state of New Jersey will not supply Newark police officers to clear these mattresses out of the street, I am going to pull my CBP officers out of the airport terminals, hand them riot shields, and send them to the barricades.
Exactly. He stated on the record that DHS was currently drawing up plans to execute this massive redeployment.
I mean, this feels like a massive game of jurisdictional chicken. It isn't just political retaliation, it's asymmetrical administrative warfare.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of a city refusing to fill the potholes in front of a federal courthouse, and the federal government responding by shutting off the water supply to the entire state. DHS is threatening to leverage its absolute monopoly over international borders to force a local municipality to comply with a street-level operational request. Is that even a legal lever they can pull?
Well, the economic and political blowback from New Jersey's Democratic delegation was immediate. Representative Rob Menendez dismissed it as the dumbest plan, while Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman accused the federal agency of effectively holding the multi-billion-dollar airline and regional tourism industries hostage simply to shield a private prison contractor's profit margins.
But the underlying question remains, why is ICE fighting with such existential ferocity to protect Delaney Hall? The state of New Jersey vehemently hates this facility.
Clearly.
The governor won't send police to help it. The local population is throwing their bodies in front of its trucks. Why didn't ICE just pack up and open a facility in a state that actually wants them?
They fought for Delaney Hall because abandoning it would mean conceding a massive legal defeat regarding the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. To understand the violence on Doremus Avenue in 2026, we actually have to look backward at a law New Jersey passed in 2021, Assembly Bill 5207.
Right. I noted this contradiction while reading the source material. AB 5207 explicitly banned the state, county jails, and private corporations from entering into or renewing any contracts for civil immigration detention.
It was a total ban.
The state legislature systematically outlawed the industry. So how did GEO Group secure a 15-year, $1 billion contract to run Delaney Hall in May 2025, 4 years after the ban was enacted?
Well, the ban triggered a massive federal lawsuit, Core Civic, Inc. v. Governor of New Jersey.
Core Civic?
Yeah, Core Civic, another massive private prison operator. They sued the state. And the U.S. Department of Justice, even under the previous Biden administration, filed statements of interest backing the private corporation against the state.
Wow.
The entire conflict culminated in a landmark July 2025 ruling by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
Let's dissect this ruling because it really is the legal bedrock that justifies the pepper spray and the barricades today.
It is.
The Third Circuit struck down New Jersey's AB 5207. What was the constitutional architecture of their argument?
The majority opinion, authored by Judge Bibas, was built entirely on the doctrine of intergovernmental immunity, which flows directly from the Supremacy Clause. The foundational premise of intergovernmental immunity, which dates way back to McCulloch v. Maryland, is that a state government cannot directly regulate, dictate, or discriminate against the operations of the federal government.
But New Jersey's legal defense was that they weren't touching the federal government.
Right.
If you read the text of AB 5207, it never mentions IC or the Department of Homeland Security. It strictly regulates private, for-profit corporations operating within the sovereign borders of New Jersey.
And New Jersey relied on a highly formalistic, text-based defense there. They argued that regulating private commerce is a core state police power.
Makes sense.
But Judge Bibas rejected that formalist reading in favor of a functionalist approach.
Okay, what does that mean?
He analyzed the specific market dynamics of immigration detention. The United States federal government is a monopsony in this space.
A monopsony.
Yeah, meaning it is the only buyer of civil immigration detention services. ICE does not build, own, or staff its own federal holding facilities. It relies almost entirely on local jails or private contractors.
Ah, I see the mechanism he's targeting. If you eliminate every possible vendor the federal government relies on to execute its mandate, you have functionally regulated the federal government.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy to clarify this legal leap. Imagine a city council that despises the U.S. Post Office.
Okay.
But they know they lack the constitutional authority to ban a federal agency. So the council passes a municipal ordinance making it illegal for any private business within city limits to print stamps, lease delivery trucks, or sell sorting equipment.
Right.
The city hasn't technically banned the post office, but by systematically annihilating the private supply chain the post office requires to function, they have engineered a functional ban.
That is precisely the logic Judge Bibas applied.
Wow.
He ruled that by suffocating the private market, New Jersey was directly regulating the federal government's ability to enforce national immigration law. He noted that if the court allowed New Jersey to enforce this ban, well, every other state could pass identical legislation.
And then what?
It would effectively nullify federal immigration policy without Congress ever changing a single law. Therefore, AB 5207 was declared an unconstitutional violation of the Supremacy Clause.
But the Third Circuit did not issue a unanimous decision, and we have to look closely at the dissenting opinion because it provides a rigorous constitutional counterargument that heavily informs the anger of the protesters currently bleeding on the street.
Yeah, Judge Ambrose wrote a scathing dissent.
He did.
He accused the majority of judicial overreach and a fundamental misapplication of intergovernmental immunity. Ambrose argued that historically the Supreme Court has ruled that neutral state laws applying broadly to private parties are considered indirect regulations.
Even if it makes things harder for the feds.
Exactly, even if those laws make the federal government's operations significantly more difficult or expensive.
His argument hinges heavily on the separation of powers. He is looking at the legislative branch, pointing out that if Congress actually wants to immunize private prison contractors from state-level health, safety, or zoning regulations, Congress has the power to pass a law explicitly stating that federal immigration contracts preempt state law.
Exactly. The doctrine of preemption requires Congress to act. Judge Ambrose argued that the judicial branch should not creatively expand the Constitution to shield federal agencies from state laws simply because Congress is too gridlocked or inactive to pass a specific preemption statute.
Right.
If IC needs Delaney Hall, let Congress authorize it. Until then, he argued, New Jersey possesses the sovereign right to regulate the private industries operating within its territory.
And he also systematically dismantled the idea that New Jersey was uniquely discriminating against the federal government.
Right, the parity argument.
Yeah. The state wasn't specifically targeting IC. New Jersey law bans private, for-profit criminal detention for its own state inmates as well. The state legislature had simply made a broad moral and economic determination that the incarceration of human beings should not be a profit-driven enterprise for anyone, state or federal.
But while Judge Ambrose's arguments regarding preemption and parity are legally robust, they remain the dissenting view.
The minority.
The majority ruling stands. The moment the Third Circuit struck down AB 5207, the federal government bypassed the democratic will of the New Jersey legislature, signed the billion-dollar contract with GEO Group, and commenced operations at Delaney Hall.
Which brings us full circle to the gravel train tracks and the pepper balls.
Ooh.
Because when you strip away the bureaucratic language of federal contracts and the abstract philosophy of the Supremacy Clause, the violence we are witnessing is the kinetic friction of this legal reality.
Yes, the physical result.
A state democratically voted to expel an industry. A panel of federal judges invalidated that vote. The federal agency then forced the facility into existence anyway. The human barricades on Doremus Avenue are the physical manifestation of a populace that feels stripped of its democratic agency.
And that tension leaves us with a profound operational and philosophical question to consider as we conclude.
What's that?
Well, if federal courts interpret the Constitution to guarantee the national government's right to utilize private contractors within a state. But the local municipal government, the state administration, and the surrounding community vehemently, physically reject the presence of those contractors. What is the functional reality of local consent?
That's the core of it.
We are watching the theoretical boundaries of state sovereignty and federal supremacy being debated not in polite legal filings, but with chemical munitions, taser deployments, and bodies blocking supply chains. When the legal avenues for state resistance are entirely foreclosed, where does the power of the local community end and the absolute authority of the federal government begin?
That structural reality is exactly why we conduct these deep dives to look past the chaotic headlines of a riot and understand the complex legal bedrock driving the collision. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found this breakdown of the Delaney Hall crisis insightful, please do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell so we can keep bringing you the systemic mechanics behind the story. Until next time, keep looking deeper.